Welcome to Oscar's Green Card, and today we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people really like, and that is approval and denial rates for EB2 NIW and EB1A, because we have fresh data from USCIS for the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. Hi, my name is Oscar, and as you know, I'm a scientist and not a lawyer, and here in this channel, together with Marina, we cover green cards like NIW, like EB1A, in which you can be the owner of your immigration future, because you can do this without a job offer, without a company sponsoring you, and also you can do it without hiring a lawyer, saving thousands of dollars. And that's what we cover here in this channel, in our channel in Spanish, in our websites, and especially in our dedicated and specialized courses for do-it-yourself petitioners like you. But today, we're going to focus on a specific topic, and that is the approval rates for the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. And remember that for USCIS, fiscal years do not equal our natural years. Our calendar years go from January to December, but fiscal years for USCIS go from October to September. So what we're going to discuss today is the data for October to December 2024. And that is the last full quarter for the Biden administration. I was a little bit worried, to be honest, and I mentioned that in our latest video, if you paid attention to that, because they are very delayed in releasing this data. And I was concerned that the new administration would just stop releasing data altogether, which would be bad news, because we would really be blind as to what is happening, and we would just be left with anecdotal evidence, with things that we see. I mean, we are lucky because we see a lot of cases through our course members that apply and they receive approvals, denials, or RFEs. So we have a little bit of an idea of what's going on at each different month, but it is always good to have official, reliable data coming directly from a government source, in this case, USCIS. And so finally, even though they are more than a month, I would say almost 2 months late, they have released the data, and we're going to cover that in this video. We're going to see approval and denial rates for this particular quarter, and we're going to compare it to previous quarters, because we do this every quarter, and we have a video here that you can watch if you want to see what happened in the last quarter of 2024. And Marina is going to tell us what are the top 10 countries by number of approvals. And remember that in this video, when we talk about approvals, we're talking about I-140 approvals. In these two green card categories, there are two main steps for the process. The I-140 step is the more difficult part, where you argue that you qualify under certain requirements that USCIS put forth in their policy manuals. And then we have the second step, where you either adjust your status if you are in the US already with a non-immigrant visa, like a working visa or a student visa, or you can also finish the process abroad through a consular process in an embassy or consulate in another country. So let's start talking numbers. We're going to see those percentage rates, and you can get an idea of what is going on in USCIS. What do we do in this channel? We take official USCIS data, and this is what this screenshot is for the particular quarter that we're going to take a look at. This is how USCIS gives us the data, with cases received, cases approved, cases denied, and cases pending. What we do in this channel, we calculate the approval rate by dividing the number of I-140 approved in this particular quarter by the sum of the approvals and the denials, and then we multiply times 100 to get the approval rate. Later, we're going to see data for a bunch of quarters. You can also have a good sense of the historical trends for these two categories. One thing I want to mention, though, about the pending cases is that we are at an all-time high, more than 130,000 cases pending for all these three employment-based green card categories. And I looked also at the individual number of pending cases for EB1A and EB2 NIW, and they have also increased, and we are at a pretty high number, which means that USCIS is kind of struggling with adjudicating cases, and that's why we are probably seeing longer administrative processing times. The time they are taking to adjudicate your case, to approve you, to deny you, or to issue an RFE is getting longer. And we are now seeing that it's probably because they are overwhelmed. And it doesn't help that the Trump administration is really cutting down on government spending, which for USCIS is kind of unfair because USCIS is mostly funded by you, by the petitioners. I think the official number is 96% of USCIS spending is funded through your fees, through the fees you pay when you file an I-140 or an adjustment of status or premium processing. You're actually funding almost the entirety of this agency. So these cuts that the government is doing in USCIS are really unfair, and they are actually asking officers to volunteer and move to different parts of the government, like ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, where they will not be adjudicating your cases, the cases that you have paid for. So again, in my opinion, really unfair situation here. We are all for government efficiency, but this is not government efficiency, this is government inefficiency, because USCIS was actually already pretty efficient in the sense of being fee funded. There are many ways to improve at USCIS, of course, and I'm all for that, and you have heard me complain about this agency a lot of times in this channel. So let's take a look at what's happening with approval rates. This is what happened until the last quarter, and I'm going to uncover the last data point in a second, but first I want to comment at the trends. Here in green color we have EB2 NIW, in blue we have EB1A, and we're looking at data since the beginning of fiscal year 2022 until the end of fiscal year 2024. What we have seen is that NIW started going down in terms of approval rates until we hit an all-time low at 61% in the last quarter, in the previous quarter. Now, in a second, I'm going to uncover what happens in this last quarter that we have data for. But you see that the average over this historical time is 81%. So we are well below the average for EB2 NIW approval rate. And if we look at what was happening in fiscal year 2022, the numbers were in the 90s, and then it kept decreasing and decreasing and decreasing until the end of fiscal year 2024. EB1A, a little bit of a different story. It has been more stable with an average of 74%, and it was pretty much there in the last quarter that we saw in our previous update. So it's fluctuating around that average, but not steadily decreasing at least. So this is the new data, and we see that things are stabilizing for EB2 NIW. We are still at very low approval rates compared to the historical mean, but we are going from 61 to 63% in this quarter. So a little bit of an uptick, but I would say that it's probably not very significant. And then we see that EB1A is pretty much unchanged from 74% in the end of fiscal year 2024 to 75% in this first quarter of fiscal year 2025. And one anomaly that we see when we compare these two categories, and we have discussed this in pretty much all the updates we have done recently, is that NIW theoretically should have a higher approval rate than EB1A, because EB1A is a higher standard when it comes to evidence. You have to be at the very top of the field to qualify and to get an approval. So one would expect that EB1A approval rates would be lower, but in the recent quarters, we're not seeing that. The two categories cross paths in the third quarter of fiscal year 2024, and EB1A has remained higher in terms of approval rates since then. And this is an anomaly. Again, it doesn't mean that it's easier to get an EB1A approval. My hypothesis is always that EB1As are usually sought by more qualified professionals versus NIW, because it's seen as something more accessible. Maybe they receive more attention and more people apply, and more people without the proper preparation apply, maybe without the proper qualifications and or without understanding how to file their case properly. And that's why we have excellent resources in our websites that you can use, and we're going to do a quick break so Marina will explain what those resources are. We'll be back in a second to take a look at the demand of these green cards.
So let's take this break to remind you about all the resources that we offer in our websites. This is our website for EB2 NIW, EB2-NIW.info, and this is the other one for the category EB1A, EB1greencard.info. There you can find a lot of information about those categories. You can read our latest post and learn about all the success story of our course members and stay up to date with all the news about these two categories. But what we recommend the most is our courses. We have 3 different courses: the EB2 NIW course, the EB1A, and another focused on RFEs, where we help you to craft the best possible answer to respond to this request for evidence. In the EB2 NIW and EB1A courses, we teach you how to prepare your own petition step by step, how to write a strong cover letter. We give you tips for drafting your recommendation letters, and we tell you everything about the required forms, the fees, and even we show you how to physically assemble your own petition package and where to send it so it arrives correctly at the USCIS, all to help you get that approval. In every lesson of the course, you can leave your questions or comments, and Oscar will personally respond to make sure you're not left with any doubts. Also, if you're interested in the EB2 NIW category, we have a live session once a month where we meet you to answer your questions face to face. With everything I've just told you, what are you waiting for to join the courses? So let's go back to Oscar.
Increase, because remember that in these categories there is an annual quota for each of these categories, and these agencies cannot give out more green cards than the annual quota, which is about 140,000 for the overall employment-based categories for all of them combined, and about 28% for each EB1 and EB2. So it is really important to also understand demand. So let's take a look at the numbers that we also see in the official numbers released by USCIS. Again, here green is NIW, blue is EB1A, and what we had been seeing is an explosion of demand from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023, and then pretty stable until we saw a reduction of demand for NIW into the last quarters of fiscal year 2024. EB1A was increasing steadily. So again, these two categories behave quite differently. And what we are seeing now is that the demand continues to decrease for NIW. We are now at less than 8,000 approvals plus denials in the last quarter, in the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. And EB1A, as usual, remains pretty stable at a little bit over 4,000 cases if we add up the approvals and the denials. And remember that we are talking about I-140s, always I-140s. So it seems that the demand for NIW is reducing, which could be good news in the long term if we are looking at things like the visa bulletin, at the wait times in the long term. These things will not automatically translate. It takes a while to see effects on things like the visa bulletin, but I would expect that this could at least slow down the backlog increase in the visa bulletin. And now Marina is going to tell us what are the top 10 countries in terms of number of I-140 approvals in each category in the first quarter of fiscal year 2025 and how it compares to previous quarters.
So let's take a look at my favorite part of this data, the top 10 countries based on the I-140 approval numbers for EB1A and EB2 NIW. In EB1A, we see that the leaders from 2024 maintain their positions in this first quarter of 2025. China and India are the first and second countries, but the combined share of approvals goes below 50% of the total of I-140 approvals because China loses more than 10 percentage points of its approvals. Nigeria, Brazil, and Russia maintain the same positions as before, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, respectively. South Korea moves 3 positions up from the number 9 to the number 6, and the UK goes up from the number 8 to the number 7. Canada goes 2 positions down with 4 more approvals, while Iran goes from the number 6 to the number 8, losing 10 approvals. And Ukraine makes its appearance and joins the chart in the last place. For EB2 NIW, we also see how China and India remain in the first and second places, respectively. Iran and Nigeria swap their places, both with less approvals than in the previous quarter. Brazil remains in the 5th position but loses 70 approvals respect with the last quarter of 2024. South Korea and Bangladesh also swap positions, and Colombia and Taiwan remain in the 9th and the last position of the chart respectively. So let's go back to Oscar.
Thank you, Marina. And now I want to remind you, the person who is watching this video, that these numbers are not your probability of success. These are overall numbers, so you should just take them with a grain of salt because each case is unique and your success will depend on a range of factors. One is your profile, your qualifications. What have you done with your career? Are you at the top of your field? Are you average? Or who are you in terms of your field of endeavor? But also, if you are in NIW, a very important thing is your proposed endeavor. Have you crafted a good endeavor that will tackle a particular problem or set of problems that the US face? Will your endeavor have broader impacts? Will you help US citizens or the economy or culture, society? You have to have a good professional mission in the United States. Next is the quality of your petition package, because yes, we have seen people that are really qualified and that have a good proposed endeavor in mind if we're talking about NIW, but their petition package is weak. They were not able to explain that effectively and in a clear, concise, and non-technical way. And that's why we have these courses that we always talk about to help you put together a good petition. By the way, we not only see those weak cases from do-it-yourself petitioners, we also have seen a bunch of them from petitions filed by lawyers. Another thing is the wild card. Who is the officer who will review your case? You have no control over that. And we know that there are officers that are more strict and officers that are a little bit less strict. So that also plays a role. And there may be other factors that I can't think of, but maybe in the comment section, you can let me know about them. And now it is your turn. What do you think about this approval and denial rates? Are you surprised with the trends? Did you think that the situation would be different? Do you expect that this will positively impact the visa bulletin and the backlogs? Let me know in the comment section. I love to read your comments. And thank you for being here as usual. Thank you for sharing this video. Thank you for hitting the like button, for subscribing. Most of the people who are watching this video are not subscribed, so go ahead, subscribe. It's free and it helps us. Thank you so much and good luck in your green card journey.